We decided on Sunday that it was appropriate for me to come up here, and quite right too. And we booked a venue, and I thought, well, I don't know. I mean, it's a working day. It might be difficult to get people out in the middle of the day. And I thought, well, I'll come, and there'll be maybe 150 people, maybe 200 people. And yet, with just 48 hours' notice, we've got 1,000 enthusiastic people here in this room. And I tell you what, if we had a couple of weeks to plan it, I can't imagine how big a crowd we could get in this part of the country. We will be doing a national event that'll take place this Sunday at midday at the NEC in Birmingham, and I fully expect it to be the biggest active political meeting that this country would have seen in modern times. I really do. And the reason is all too clear. We all have a deep sense of unease. Something is going very, very wrong with the country that we're part of, with the country that we believe in, with the country we want our kids and grandkids to grow up in. We have spent time indoctrinating a younger generation that everything about our past is wrong. We've been poisoning the minds of our young people. That, I think, is absolutely appalling. I want them to learn that whilst not everything in our history is perfect, actually there is no country in the world with a better past than us, and we should be proud of those that went before us. There is a growing deep sense of unease about crime on our streets. The fact, it doesn't matter where you are, you can be in the poorest part of the country or the richest part of West London. The number of young people out there now threatening people, stealing mobile phones and carrying knives makes us all, wherever we live, think twice, doesn't it, about going out in the evening. And I'm aiming this particularly to young people. And by the way, one thing they can't understand is the extent to which I am connecting with the younger generation. It's very, very exciting. Whether that's a result of having snakes crawling all over me in the jungle or not, I don't know. But I do have the most active TikTok of any British political figure by miles, and I sense the young are coming. But it's interesting. You think, well, fear of crime is when you get older. No. It's the younger people that now fear crime more than the middle-aged and the elderly, because they want to go to music concerts. They want to go out clubbing, something for which the North East is world-renowned, incidentally. And they're deeply fearful that other young people are carrying knives. So there's a sense of unease about that. And the answer, of course, to that is a completely different, less woke approach to policing. And we should be executing stop and search, stop and search, stop and search. And perhaps there's an even deeper sense of unease about what is happening in our communities. We have always been, particularly compared to our continental neighbours, the most open country when it comes to our relationship with the rest of the world. Think of this part of England. Think of the ships that were built, the men and women that went all over the world, and in turn, people from other parts of the world that came here. And we're the only country in the history of humankind who has developed a relationship with its empire into one of a club that is called the Commonwealth. These things are remarkable achievements. And we've always been, I think as a people, far more generous and far more open-hearted to those around the world facing genuine oppression or the threat perhaps even of death. So we've always been kind to those communities in trouble around the world. We've accepted, absolutely, since the late 1940s, that immigration into Britain can be a good thing. Certainly the choice of food in most of our towns is rather better as a result of it. But what has happened over the course of the last 25 years is something entirely different. It is mass migration on a level that in fact begins not just to divide and damage communities and potentially to set people apart from each other, which is dangerous, but also I think a feeling that perhaps something about our culture is directly under threat. That sense of who we are, and that this is a problem. And just think about the numbers. You know, Tony Blair came to power. Sedgefield boy, of course, it's all your fault up here, it really is. Tony Blair comes to power and opens the door. And bear in mind, for the previous 50 years, net migration had been 30, 40,000 a year. That's what it had been for 50 years. Tony Blair comes to power and opens the door. And net, over his premiership, 2.7 million people come. And the Conservatives accelerate it, because now nearly 4.5 million have come since they came to power. Now, you are suffering less with this problem in the northeast than certainly the southeast, where I'm from, where the roads are clogged beyond imagination. Access to a GP is pretty much impossible at short notice. And housing has become, for most young people, simply an unobtainable dream. And rents are up by 20 to 30% across the country in the last 4 years. It's a simple demand-supply equation. And that's why I've said from the start, this really should be the immigration election. I don't know whether you watched the debate last night no, you had better things to do. I can't say that I blame you. But if you did watch the debate last night, furious arguments on tax, furious arguments on immigration, furious arguments on the Channel boat crossings, a subject that I will return to, I promise you, it's my specialist subject. Furious arguments between them, and yet, in policy terms, there isn't really much to choose. In fact, the more they argued, the more they seemed the same. Has your phone stopped ringing? I'm so sorry to inconvenience you. I really, really am. Don't worry about it. I don't mean it. And so, we have a sense things are going wrong. And by the way, if you're self-employed out there, or running a small limited company, you know what I'm about to say, that neither front bench has any comprehension of who you are or what you do. None. But does the Labour Party offer any solutions? Well, to begin with the Conservatives, and it's worth saying here in the northeast, of course Sunderland, I'll never forget Sunderland, and the early hours of June the 24th, 2016, when I was feeling utterly depressed. The polls had closed. It was the end of a 25-year journey for me, because I'd just gone on relentlessly believing that the best people to govern Britain were the British people themselves. That was what I fought for all those years.
Very well, lots of legs, but And there we have it, Nigel Farage giving a rally to a packed crowd in County Durham. And of course, this is during the election campaign.